Hey everyone! Today we'll be presenting our usability testing report for Simplify. Simplify is a Canvas plugin designed to help instructors identify and fix accessibility issues in their courses. First, I'll start by giving a quick overview of the product and go over what our study entailed. Ihorn will then walk through the methods and qualitative results. Sophie will cover the qualitative analysis, and Jared will close with recommendations and next steps. Simplify scans courses for accessibility issues, flags them by severity, and provides AI-supported suggestions. The tool aligns with established higher ed course design frameworks such as CBC, OEI, Quality Matters, and the Peralta Online Equity Rubric. These are standards many colleges and universities use to evaluate things like accessibility, navigation, course organization, and the overall student experience in online classes. So instead of instructors having to memorize all of those guidelines themselves, Simplify helps surface issues based on those existing standards. Our study was organized into two phases. In Phase 1, we conducted a heuristic evaluation where two team members independently reviewed the interface using the Nielsen-Norman Group worksheet. I also ran an AI-assisted review using Claude Code. This gave us an additional technical perspective since Claude Code had supported parts of the prototype development. Phase 2 involved moderated usability testing, with 7 participants completing scenario-based tasks inside a Canvas sandbox environment. The sessions used a Think Aloud protocol over Zoom, which were recorded and transcribed. The goal of the study was really to see whether users could complete Simplify's scan to fix to publish workflow on their own without us stepping in or guiding them through it. We also wanted to understand whether they trusted the AI-generated suggestions enough to actually apply them in their own course materials, because a tool like this only works if users believe the recommendations are reliable. Beyond that, we were looking closely at the friction points, where participants hesitated, where they got confused, and where the experience felt intuitive or smooth. Those moments gave us a clear sense of where the next round of design improvements should focus. And with that, I'll hand it over to Ihorn, who will walk you through how we structured the sessions.
We recruited 7 participants across faculty instructional design roles. 5 were external participants, our primary usability evidence, and 2 were expert stakeholders, which included professors and co-founders of Simplify. We reported them separately since their familiarity with the tool could inflate results. Our 4 personas, Josephine, Bob, Hannah, and Tess, represent the range of experience and context we've recruited across. Our tests covered Simplify's core workflow process across 7 tasks: initiating a scan, interpreting results, navigating issue types, applying a manual fix, applying an AI-generated fix, publishing changes, and undoing them. After each task, participants gave a single ease question rating, and at the end they completed a full SUS in a debrief interview. Our heuristic evaluation flagged 5 main issues before we ran any participants: no scan progress indicator, jargon without plain language context, no batch undo, a batch fix-all button that fired with no confirmation, and a feature guide that listed capabilities rather than offering in-context help. These inform what we watch for in the sessions. The headline numbers: Simplify received a median SUS score of 90 across all 7 participants, well above the benchmark for usability testing, which is 68. Task success reached 100% across all 7 tasks, and 6 clear qualitative themes emerged, which Sophie will cover. Looking at SUS in detail, external participants had a median of 90, ranging from 72.5 to 100. Stakeholders scored slightly higher at 91.25, which is expected given their familiarity with the tool. In the chart, the coral bars are external participants, black bars are stakeholders. One thing worth noting is that the lowest external score of 72.5 came from the participant with the most friction observation in the sessions. Small accumulated frustration can drag down overall usability perception even when the task is completed successfully. As EQ ratings corroborate the patterns we were seeing in the SUS. 6 of the 7 tasks received a median of 5 from external participants, which was the maximum. The 2 orange bars are the exception. Task 2, interpreting scan results, received a median of 4, consistent across 3 of the 5 participants regardless of accessibility experience. The results page itself was clear. Specific terminology slowed people down. Task 5, the AI generate fix was the only task to produce a score below 4 in the entire data set. One participant rated 2.5. Sophie will explain why. So, on the qualitative side, we synthesized data from Think Out Loud transcripts, facilitators' notes, and debrief interviews using Braun and Clark's 6-phase thematic analysis. 6 themes emerged: learning while fixing and selective trust in AI appear all across 7 sessions. I'll hand it to Sophie to walk through the analysis.
To arrive at these 6 themes, we used a FigJam affinity map to synthesize data across all 7 sessions. We followed Braun and Clark's 6-phase process, familiarizing ourselves with the data, generating initial codes, building themes, reviewing and refining them, naming them, and writing them up. The affinity map let us see patterns across participants visually before committing to theme names. The most consistent finding was something we didn't design for. Participants experienced Simplify as a teaching tool. All 7 participants described learning accessibility concepts through the tool, not just fixing the issues. As one first-time user put it, I wasn't just using an app, I was learning concepts. I was learning design choices. This is why I would use it. The writing tips panel, which you can see here on the right of the screen, was specifically named as a teaching mechanism by 3 participants. Once it flags what's wrong, it explains why it matters for learners. That in context rationale was often the first time participants had encountered that kind of accessibility guidance. The implication? Simplify functions as a teaching tool. No participant rejected AI suggestions outright, and none accepted them uncritically. Trust was high for bounded tasks like simple alt text and URL rewrites. It became conditional for interpretive content like scientific diagrams and domain-specific figures. One participant described it directly. The AI can totally miss the mark, calling a complex figure just a flowchart with no meaningful detail. There was also a systemic concern. That same participant worried about other instructors, especially those pressed for time, accepting AI suggestions without review. Simplify's efficient workflow is a strength, but it could enable inaccurate fixes to be published without oversight. We identified 4 specific friction points across sessions. One was the modal reading order, which showed the issue explanation below the fix option. So participants had to scroll down to understand the problem, then scroll back up to act. Another friction point was the green checkmark button, which was widely misread as a general yes, proceed, rather than this image is decorative. Severity codes, which appeared without any explanation of what high, medium, and low actually meant, confused participants. Lastly, the clickable issues row that didn't change the cursor on hover caused participants to momentarily feel uncertain about whether the issue row was clickable. None of these issues prevented task completion. Success rates stayed at 100%, but they added hesitation at moments that should feel automatic. So, to pull everything together, here's our 4 major quantitative findings, which provide more information to some of our qualitative themes. 1, there was a strong usability baseline. Our SUS score median was 90, which falls well above the benchmark of 68, which is associated with above average usability. But something worth flagging is the scores ranged from 72.5 to 100, which tells us there was some meaningful variation within the group. The lowest SUS score of 72.5 was produced by a participant who also generated the most qualitative friction observations. Finding 2 was around terminology. We determined that terminology was the primary friction source. Task 2, interpreting scan results, was the only task to receive a median SEQ of 4 among external participants. Another finding was regarding Task 5, applying an AI-generated fix. Participants moved through most tasks with ease, but for task 5, participants experienced friction. Task 5 produced a sub-4 SEQ score in the external dataset. One participant rated it a 2.5, reflecting confusion around the relationship between the suggested fix, the alt text field, and the text description that appeared at the bottom of the modal. Our last major finding was that prior accessibility experience did not predict task success. Every external participant completed all 7 tasks without assistance, showing that Simplify's core workflow is accessible across the experience spectrum.
We have 3 prioritized recommendations based on this report. First is a high priority recommendation. Fix the 4 UI friction points. Reorder the modal content. Show what the issue is before showing fix options. Revise the green checkmark label so it's clear that it marks the image as decorative, not a general confirmation. Add inline explanations for severity codes right where the user encounters them. And add cursor affordance to clickable rows. These are all targeted low-effort changes that don't touch any core workflow. They don't change task success rates, which are already at 100%, but they'll reduce the hesitation that accumulates into lower SUS scores over time. Next is a medium priority and low priority recommendation. For medium priority, add grouping and filtering to the issue list. At real course scale, the flat list becomes hard to manage. Both expert stakeholders raised this independently. Batch fixing repeated issue types, like the long URL pattern we saw throughout our sandbox, would meaningfully reduce remediation time. Low priority. Reframe the position. Our data says something more interesting than an accessibility checker. All 7 participants described Simplify as teaching them accessibility concepts. A compliance tool creates obligation. A learning tool creates motivation. Adding that framing to onboarding copy or a welcome screen is a low cost with potentially high impact on faculty adoption. We also want to flag workflow gaps participants named as feature requests, document scanning for PDF, Word, and PowerPoint, fix preview before committing, and scan history. Longer-term considerations, but grounded in real faculty needs, can also be considered. Lastly, there are a few limitations to keep in mind. Our external sample was 5 participants, which limits quantitative generalizability. Our sessions used a control sandbox, not participants' real courses, and our participants may have skewed towards people already interested in accessibility. That being said, qualitative and quantitative findings aligned closely throughout, and these thematic patterns held across very different experience levels, which increases our confidence in the themes. These next steps: implement the high priority UI fixes and retest specifically tasks 2 and 5. Expand the sample, especially to reach more skeptical faculty with different levels of experience, and move testing into real course environments, not just sandbox. In conclusion, Simplify delivers, and it can deliver more. Median SUS scores of 90, 100% task success, and unexpected learning affordance, these are all genuine differentiators, and 4 targeted UI fixes that are well within reach. The foundation is strong, and the path forward is clear. Thank you, and thanks for listening into Simplify.